right, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Vicki Fishman, the Virginia Director of Government and Community Relations for the JCRC of Greater Washington. As the public affairs arm of the organized Jewish community of our region, one focus of the JCRC over the past couple of years has been the protection of our democracy through ensuring our democratic processes and infrastructure and promoting civics education and participation. In addition to today's webinar, we have and will continue to bring you information about understanding and participating in the election process, ballot access, and how to be a wise consumer of the daily abundance of information, misinformation, and disinformation that we receive in our news feeds every day. Before I introduce our first speaker, I will first share a few technical details. Please be aware that this webinar is being recorded. Closed captioning has been activated. You should have a button on your screen that allows you to view the captions. Please submit any questions that you have through the Q&A function, and we will get to as many of them as we can at the end of the program. Turning to today's program, we will begin with an overview of the need, the importance of poll workers to the system, and the nationwide need to fill these slots. That will be followed by representatives from several of our jurisdictions sharing local specifics. It now is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. Sandra comes to us from an organization called Power the Polls. Power the Polls is a first of its kind, nonpartisan initiative to recruit poll workers to ensure safe and fair elections for all voters, and has become the national leader in poll worker recruitment. To address a crisis in polling place staffing, Power the Polls was launched in June 2020 by a coalition of businesses and nonprofits to recruit a new cadre of poll workers excited to serve their communities, help their neighbors vote, and ensure safe access to the ballot box for years to come. Relying on objective data about poll worker requirements and applications collected from over 5,000 jurisdictions, Power the Polls has mobilized nearly 1 million potential poll workers since 2020. Sandra, the mic is yours, and I'll just let everyone know that you were having some internet issues, and so she's not going to turn on her camera. And please let us know if you're having trouble hearing her, but I think she should be fine. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for that introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then get started. So once again, thank you so much for that introduction. I am really excited to be here, and I'm excited to be talking about poll working. So as Vicki mentioned, we are a nonpartisan organization, and today what I will briefly cover is why poll workers matter. I think I may be singing to the choir here, or preaching to the choir, I should say here, but I will go over these points for you all just to kind of double down on why it's also important in this election specifically. And then I'll also just briefly go over what poll workers do, and then how you can help as well as someone who is a constituent, someone who is civically engaged, or if you are an organization as well, what you can do. So as mentioned already, Power the Polls is a national nonpartisan initiative. On the left here are some of the organizations and media companies that we work with that fall under the umbrella of the Civic Responsibility Project. And so we were put together back in 2020 to address a need for poll workers. And that need came from a surge of mobilization of voters, which is an amazing thing. And we potentially predict that to be happening this year as well. But in order for us to have a stable democracy and an ability to cast our ballots, we absolutely need poll workers. They're the backbone of our democracy and our voting process. And so we want to ensure a safe, secure, accessible, and fair election for all voters. And that's why we have been created, and we've been going strong since. So poll workers power our democracy. I know I said that already, but here are some points that I will just kind of briefly touch on why they matter. So as I mentioned, they enable the nonpartisan process of our democracy. These are folks that you've seen in your polling place where you walk in and they are the first to open up the polling place. They are the last to leave. They also ensure and prevent long lines from happening. They make sure that voters get to cast their vote if they are on a long line. They also provide voters with information inside the polling location that is relevant to them and their native language if needed. They also ensure technology functions properly and efficiently. Recently, there has been a request and a push from election administration offices to find folks who are technologically savvy, and that just means people who know how to operate an iPad. We have been doing our best to ensure that that's one of the requirements, but that's definitely not needed. So don't feel that you need to be a pro at that if you're interested in signing up. But the last point I'll make here, which I think is very important, is that they make every voter's experience a very positive and empowering one. And I like to emphasize this too, because anytime I vote, I feel like it is something that needs to be celebrated. And I know that we all do. We get that sticker in the end. But I think what really makes it special for me and other folks that I know who do it is the experience of walking in, seeing someone who is welcoming you and is there to support you along the way and ensure that your vote is being casted, because they too also know the importance of this process. So I will just clarify here what poll workers do. Sometimes this actually does get confused, even for some veterans who have been doing this for a very long time. But poll workers, they open up the voting stations or polling locations. They help their neighbors vote. And as I mentioned before, they are the last to leave. They break down the polling locations when voting ends, and they ensure that all the ballots make it safely to be counted. For each state and jurisdiction within the state, there is eligibility considerations, and you will be able to get that information directly from your Board of Elections or your local election administrative office where you sign up to become a poll worker. So one of the main requirements is being a resident of the state and county that you want to work in, and then also being registered to vote in that state and county that you want to work in. And then also for some, the starting age is 18 years old or older, but there are some election administrative offices that actually allow 16-year-olds who are pre-registered to become a poll worker. And that's been a really great experience, I think, for younger folks, because we've seen some organizations bring on some youth poll workers. We've seen families bring their younger family members as well and make it a family affair, and really engage and bring in younger generations into the civic engagement process, which is, I think, is pretty incredible. And then the last point that I'll make is that most, if not all, but I will say most election administrator offices want to ensure party parity. So that's where we come in as a nonpartisan organization, and we work with various organizations that have deep roots in many different communities. And some of those communities do have different party representation, which we are really, we're really proud of, because we then get to help these offices staff their polling locations equally for those that do require it. And so, to be specific, if that sounds confusing, there are some offices that do require an equal amount of Republican poll workers and an equal amount of Democrats to each other. And like I said, this isn't the case for all offices, but we on our side try to do our best to ensure that, so that polling locations can function and they don't end up closing because there's a lack of poll workers that are able to staff it. So here's one important delineation that I also want to make. Poll workers and poll watchers are two totally different roles. And so poll workers are election workers. They're the folks who are trained by the local election administrators, and they also run the polling places, as I've stated. And in most cases, they are paid. In most states, like I mentioned, they start at 16 or 17. And then poll watchers, aka election observers, they're often appointed by political parties or candidates or other outside groups that do voter protection, or they observe election activities. They also, the rules vary by state, but generally the offices prohibit them from interfering in the electoral process and have them stand within, let's say, like 100 feet away from the polling location. To my knowledge, they are not paid. They are volunteers, but they are completely separate from the election offices. So please help us power the polls. some of the things that we like to do is work with our election administrators to ensure that our poll workers are appreciated as well. They do really important work, and we hope that you all have the opportunity to sign on as a poll worker. But these are some of the things that we've heard from election administrative offices. And we want to continue to ensure that people are having a positive experience doing this. So here's how you can help. I'm going to send Vicky a unique link if anyone does want to sign up that is specific to JCRC. But you can sign up and you can also visit the website powerthepolls.org just to get some more information. But I will also just send that to Vicky. So I hope that you'll be able to pass that on to the folks here. And then Poll Worker Recruitment Day is on Thursday. This is our big day to sign up. You can sign up anytime. There is no deadline, but this is just a really great national day of action for us. If you are an organization and you want to partner with us, please do reach out to Vicky. My contact information is just partners@powerthepolls.org. And here's just more information on how you can just either partner with us or email if you have any questions. And if you wanted to find us on all platforms on social media, which I highly recommend, you can also just find us at Power the Polls. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for your time. I can also take questions if you want me to, Vicky.
Well, I think we'll let everyone speak and then take questions at the end. Can you just, before we move on though, clarify the link that you're going to send me that I can distribute? Can you clarify what that link does?
Yes. And so powerthepolls.org, let's say it is /JCRC. What folks will do is just log on to that, and then you'll be able to just enter your information. And once you do, that information is just your name, your email, and your zip code. That will then take you to your local Board of Elections office, and then it will take you to the application to sign up as a poll worker. And then from that point, when you sign up as a poll worker through your Board of Elections, then your election administrator will then contact you. And we ask that you are patient because it takes sometimes several weeks. And they also are gearing up right now and doing a lot of recruitment with us. But when the time comes, I would say probably late August, early September, and this differs for all offices, they'll contact the folks that put in an application, and then they will start scheduling for training. And so if you do sign up as a poll worker, and you're waiting on a call, I would highly recommend don't call Vicky, don't email me, but go straight to your office and see what the status is of your application, because at that point, you'll mainly be working with them. And our role in this process is just to share the resources with you and get partners to share those resources as well and help recruit poll workers. And so, like I said, I'll just repeat, at that point, you will then be working with your local election administrative office and Board of Elections, and that will not have necessarily anything to do with us. But I do highly recommend, if there is an issue that you think that they can't handle or answer, feel free to just reach out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And as I said, we'll get to questions at the end. Reminder to everybody to go ahead and put any questions you have in the Q&A. And now I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa Myers from Arlington County, and she will give you information specific to Arlington, and I think maybe a little bit more generally about Virginia.
Yeah, so
Thanks.
yeah, thank you so much. My name is Alyssa Myers. I am the Deputy Director of Elections for Arlington County. And so I am in charge of recruiting and hiring all of our election officers, as well as training them and assigning them. So I'm going to go through, like Vicki said, Virginia as a whole, and also some specific stuff to Arlington County. So in Virginia, the position is called an election officer. So in Virginia, election officers work specifically at the polls on election day. They are a legally distinct role. So other jobs working early voting, that's a separate oath and a separate position. All officers get training before they serve, and you can choose to be a volunteer or paid. It's the same role either way. And those pay rates are different in every county, as well as, like I said, some of the specific practices from county to county vary a little bit. So in Arlington County, we have 54 precincts on election day. Our workers are in those precincts from 5 a.m. until the end of the day. That's when the work is done. So voting happens from, I'm so sorry, this is a typo. Voting is from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. in Virginia. So the voters, the workers get there at 5 a.m. and they stay until after all the equipment is packed up at 7 p.m. And sometimes that can take until 8 or 9 p.m. All the results need to be reported. Everything needs to be accounted for before anyone can leave. Workers are assigned to a specific polling place to work during election day, and they have to remain in that polling place for the entire day. So in each polling place, we have a few roles. So each polling place is led by the chief election officer. This is an experienced officer who has extra training and leads the polling place, as well as managing the other officers. They are in charge of that polling place. We also have the assistant chief who assists the chief. And if in any case, the chief would not be able to serve out their responsibilities, they would become the chief. Now in Arlington, we have a third position called a registration clerk. A lot of localities do have something similar to this. They are a officer that has extra training, extra experience to resolve more complicated situations, issues with registration, extra paperwork that needs to be filed, all that good stuff. So these are more experienced officers who aren't overseeing other officers, but they have technical knowledge. And then the rest of the election officers help with the standard voting process. That's checking voters in, issuing ballots, and using the voting equipment. So I do want to go through some requirements for election officers. So all election officers in Virginia do need to be registered voters. So you do not need to be 18, but you do have to be registered. So for instance, if you turn 18 in September, or then you could serve in a primary that year, even if you're 17 at the time of the primary, because you could still vote in that primary. You cannot be a direct employee of an elected official of a town, city, county, the state of Virginia, within Virginia, or the federal government. And if you have a close relative that's on the ballot, you have to sit out that election. The last thing I want to mention that's kind of area specific is the Hatch Act, which is a federal law that kind of dictates the political actions of federal employees. As Sandra talked about, we do have the option for officers to affiliate with a party if they wish. And the Hatch Act, depending on what department you're in, your department legal counsel may advise you not to affiliate with a party or place, restrictions on that. All right. So if you would like to become an election officer, the workflow is there's an online application, and I'll talk a little bit more about where to find that in a moment. Once you submit that application, it goes to the electoral board of the locality for approval. The electoral board just confirms that you are an eligible worker. Once that is approved, you get added to our list of approved officers. This is a list we draw from to staff our election. So before each election, we send out an availability survey to see who can work, who wants to work, where they're able to work, things like that. And from that, we create the assignments. This process will be starting at the end of this week. So it starts early because it takes a long time. Assignments get distributed to the officers that are chosen to work. And at that point, they are informed of the training they need to attend. In Virginia, the training has to happen the month before the election. So our trainings won't actually start until October. But once everyone has completed training, they are ready to serve on election day. So for Arlington, you can go to our website at vote.arlingtonva.gov to find our application. We're actually rolling out a new application tomorrow for poll worker recruitment day. So I would wait until tomorrow because the new one's a little easier to use. If you live anywhere in Virginia, you can apply on the main Virginia elections website. Last I checked for poll worker recruitment day, that state form is front and center right on the main page. And for other cities and counties, especially in Northern Virginia, those bigger counties, I would go directly to their web pages, just search the locality name and elections office or board of elections, and they will bring you to their applications because a lot of them do have those local applications. And that is kind of all I have for you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. And now I'm going to introduce, oh, I have this out of order on my list. I'm sorry. Aisha Mills-Farigo from Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for, I'm frozen, including me today. I do apologize that I don't have a PowerPoint as everyone else, but I do have plenty of information to share, and I'm happy to put our web address and telephone number, contact information in the chat so everyone can grab that information there. So again, my name is Aisha Mills-Farigo. I'm with the Montgomery County Board of Elections. I'm the acting recruitment manager at this time. So in Montgomery County, we refer to our election workers, election judges, poll workers, sort of all under that umbrella. Our election judges are poll workers who would work in one of our 230 plus polling precincts on election day and or one of our 14 early voting sites during early voting. Our election workers would work in positions such as canvassing, counting the voted ballots, drop box attendants. So those are individuals who would go to the drop boxes that we have around Montgomery County, picking up the ballots that people have placed and bringing them back. And then also we have our nursing home program. And so those volunteers would assist the local nursing homes in helping those residents cast their ballots and provide information on how they would submit their ballot for Election Day. So this year, this coming election, we need over 4,000 election judges to help facilitate our elections. And we will begin training for those positions in August. So late August, we'll start our training. And in order to be a poll worker, you do have to go through 2 parts of training. The first part of training is online. It's an online quiz that you'll take. It's about 50 questions. We provide all of the training materials that you'll need. Once you've completed your quiz, then you'd be eligible to get a position. We provide our positions and training before we provide our assignments. So it goes from application to online training to in-person training. Once you've completed all of the training, then your recruiter would give you an assignment, and then you'd be expected to serve there on Election Day or early voting. We do have a program for our younger participants. So in order to participate with us, you do need to be 16 years old and older, and you can register at 16 in Maryland to vote. And you don't have to live in Montgomery County, but you just do have to be registered in the state of Maryland in order to participate with us. We do have a program called the Future Vote Program. So if you have youngsters who are 6th grade, 7th grade, all the way up to the 12th grade, you have an opportunity to volunteer with us and earn SSL hours. I don't know what each county, but in Montgomery County, there is a requirement that each student have a minimum of 75 hours of student service learning hours in order to graduate. So we do offer an opportunity for that. And even as a 16-year-old, if you want to participate and not get paid for your service, you can certainly choose to have SSL hours instead. Let's see. Sorry. So that is actually all I had for you today. I do want to put the information in the chat where you can apply if you're interested in applying for the program. Our website is the best place to submit your application. Our recruiters are here on site Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then during the election, as it gets closer, we're usually here off hours, so we're still accessible to everyone.
Great, thank you so much. And now Jeloni Coulter from the DC Board of Education, Board of Elections.
Hello, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great. Thanks.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so my name is Jelani Coulter. I'm with the DC Board of Elections. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our Board of Elections in DC. We are a independent agency of the district government. We are responsible for the administering elections, ballot access, and voter registration. I work directly in the voter education and outreach division. Essentially what I do is, or what we do is, we go out, we conduct voter registration campaigns all year round, even on off election years. We provide informational resources such as key election dates, polling locations, operating of the voting equipment, and also election worker recruitment, which I'm going to talk more about today. Question, can you guys see the PowerPoint? Perfect, perfect. So all my information will be in this PowerPoint as well, and I'll answer any questions you have at the end of the PowerPoint. Overview of what I'm going to talk about. You will learn about our election worker program in DC, the election worker requirements, the election worker positions, early voting and election day shift/stipends, and the election worker application process. About the election worker program. The election worker program recruits and trains individuals to staff a vote center, ensuring that the elections are conducted smoothly, fairly, and efficiently. Election workers perform various tasks such as voter registration, ballot distribution, assisting voters, and managing a vote center. Requirements to become an election worker. To be an election worker in DC, you must be a DC resident. You must be a DC resident. 16-year-olds are eligible to participate in our program. We'll go over how much they will pay, but they will only be able to work on election day. We offer early voting from October 28th to November 3rd, and I'll go over that later on in the PowerPoint. But so regular election workers will have the opportunity to work election day, which is early voting, which is 7 days leading up to election day. 16-year-olds, if you're under 18, you will only be eligible to work only on election day. Another requirement, either attends or has graduated from a public or private secondary school or an institution of higher education. You must be a registered voter to participate. Must be a registered voter to serve as a site coordinator. I forget what the other states said that they call their person that manages the whole vote center, but we call our election worker the site coordinator that actually manages the whole vote center. And to also participate, you must complete a mandatory 4-hour training. Election worker positions. You have 4 options to choose to volunteer to work inside a vote center. You can be a registration clerk. The registration clerk is responsible for verifying the voter's registration. That will be the first contact the voter sees when they enter inside the vote center. Once the registration clerk checks you in, they will send you off to the ballot clerk. And the ballot clerk is pretty self-explanatory. They are responsible for ensuring the voter has the correct ballot style. We want to make sure the voter has the correct ballot for the office that they want to run for, or the office that they want to vote for. Once the ballot clerk has presented you your ballot, they will hand you off to the voter assistance clerk. The voter assistance clerk will be the one to actually help you cast your ballot. The voter assistance clerk main duty is just responsible for assisting all voters throughout the vote center. And again, the site coordinator is responsible for managing the overall or overseeing the whole vote center. Election worker shifts and stipends. Early voting begins October 28th through November 3rd, as I already mentioned. Election workers will have the option to work 2 shifts or up to 2 shifts. They can work a morning shift from 8 to 2, or they can work the afternoon shift from 1:30 to 7:30 p.m. They will be compensated with $100 per day for early voting. So $700 for those 7 days. Leading up to election day on November 5th, Tuesday, November 5th, we are closed on Monday, November 4th. For observance, I forget the holiday, but we are closed on Monday, November 4th. We're reopening on election day from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And you have the opportunity to make up to $250. There is a all-day commitment, so you will have to work from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on election day only. So we do encourage you bring your lunch and just something to snack on. Make sure you.
We just lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. We lost you at about bring something to snack on.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So it is an all-day commitment on election day. And you'll be compensated with $250 for that whole day. For the student election worker shifts, so we do offer this program for students that are 16, that are under 18, that are in high school, and we do offer it for students that are 18 that are in high school. So if you are under 18, you will only be able to work on election day, as I mentioned, and you will work from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. or you do the morning shift or the afternoon shift from 11 a.m. to 7, or you can do a half day, which is from 4 to 8. If you work the morning shift or afternoon shift, you can make up to $125. That's just one shift. Or you can get community service hours as well. If you work the half day shift, or if you want to, get half community service hours or get paid, still get paid, you will receive 4 community service hours and $65 check. All checks will be mailed 4 weeks after election day. So you will be receiving your checks within 4 weeks after election day. Student election workers that are 18-year-olds, they have the same option as regular election workers, or that's over 18. They will be paid $250, but they also can still receive community service hours as well. How to become an election worker. I have so conveniently put a QR code that leads to our application. So if you're interested, you can take a picture and pass this QR code around if you know anyone that's interested. Also have provided you our election worker division's contact information. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And before I go to this, I'm also going to mention our Adopt a Vote Center program. So this program serves for, or is offered to any civic, community, school, service, or faith-based group based in DC. And it's basically an opportunity for that group to actually adopt a vote center. So they'll be responsible for providing. So we require 10 to 12 individuals to staff a vote center. So they'll be required to provide us 10 to 12 members to staff that vote center. Again, they will come to training. Once they get trained, we will assign a vote center. And the training process, so once you sign up to become an election worker, you will be contacted by the election worker division. They will give you an option of when you want to get scheduled to train. We are training election workers starting August 13th up until October, maybe the middle of October. I don't know the exact date, so I don't want to give you the date, but from August 13th up until October. So you have a few months to get trained if you're not available now to get trained. But yep, so once the election worker division calls you, they will give you an option of give you some dates that you can get trained. Once you get trained, you have to pass the hands-on, and we have a written portion of the quiz. We do offer a online training. That training does not make you eligible to participate in this program. To participate, you have to do the in-person training. We only offer, or we have the online training for after you completed your in-person training. Again, because we offered training from August until October, so someone may get trained in August and forget their duties. So we still make sure that they are up to date and know that they know their duties and what they'll be doing. And I think we'll wait for the questions, right, Miss Vicky?
Yeah, well, we're now ready for questions. So thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. So if anyone have any questions for me, I'll take those.
Yeah. And I'm going to start off. And Jelani, if you can stop sharing your screen, then I think we can see all of the speakers. And I did put in the chat Aisha's information, so everyone should now have it for the Montgomery County Board of Education. I keep saying Board of Education, Board of Elections. I am curious, Jelani, you just ended with Jelani, I'm sorry. I think
It's
I'm
fine. You
thinking
fine,
your
you fine.
but you mentioned the adopt a polling
Adopt a
place.
vote center. Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
and which sort of is part of another question that I had. One of you talked about families coming together and doing this. And I'm wondering if someone, and Sandra, you might be the right person to start, but can sort of talk about the impact of bringing in younger people, families, groups, sort of how does that impact the process in general? If any of you can talk to that, has experience with it, has seen it, it'd be great. Sandra, go ahead. So I
I'm
see you
happy to
unmuted.
jump in. Yeah, no, I'm very excited about it too. And I can just also share, like personally, I remember the first time that I was brought to vote, it was through a friend's parent. And they taught me the process while my parents were working. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. They bring their kids. Well, not kids. We weren't really kids. We were like 18 or something. Still kids, but they brought us to a polling location and we casted our votes. And it was like such a memorable experience. And I remember the poll workers to this day, I still remember, were older. And as I grew up along the years, I just always remembered a certain generation had been powering our precincts and our polling locations for a very long time, even till now. And I think as of recently, and since I have joined Power the Polls, I've seen partners as well as folks who have signed up as poll workers say, I want to extend this to the next generation. And I want to ensure that the next generation is also civically engaged. And I have also seen younger generations from the youth groups that I work with who build us into their program because they want to be able to offer, aside from voting, a different way to get involved, not just through joining a voter registration drive, but also being able to be part of like the next generation who actively puts this in their schedule that time of year and says, I'm going to go be a poll worker because this is something that is very much part of my life and is very much part of my giving back to the community and just paying it forward. So luckily we've seen some really great positivity around that. And I extend that to you all too, because I know that that's something that I would imagine you would want to do. But for the most part, I have seen how it's been a very positive experience and much needed too.
I don't know if any of the others, if you want to weigh in.
Yeah, I would just say like, so in Virginia, we have a high school page program. Not every locality has it, but it's allowed by state law that any high school student can come and work at the polls. And so there have been a number of times that I've had like the mom is chief, the dad is registration clerk, and their kids are pages. And I find it's really valuable for them. They really enjoy it, and there's like some really impactful things that the high school pages can do. Even though they're not full election officers, they can't do some of the more sensitive activities, but especially for high schoolers who speak two languages, that is a huge help. We have like a higher number of student translators that really help in person at the polls. And I've also found that some of the programs have the pages leaving at 1 p.m. so they don't have to work a full day. I've had numerous pages call me in the main office and be like, can I just stay the whole day? And they do, and they love it. And I do think it is a really valuable experience.
Great.
And if I can add myself, so we have college students that actually, so Howard University actually adopted a vote center for this past primary election in June, and I can say myself that they enjoyed themselves, and I have some very positive feedback from them all, including the site coordinator. So the site coordinator, or I don't know what the other jurisdictions or states call them, but the site coordinator is the one that oversees ours, and it was just positive feedback from them as well. Just letting us know that the students were involved, and it was all students that was actually working as election workers. So I do think it is a good way for younger people to get involved for sure.
That's great. And Aisha, I'm going to go to you with a question from the audience, which is if you can share with us how long the shifts for judges in Montgomery County is. Is it a full day? Is it a half day? Is it an option to do either?
Sure. We do have a limited amount of part-day positions, but a full-day position would be from 6 a.m. to about 11 p.m. And then our part-day positions range from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Or the afternoon, which begins at 2 to 11. And then we do have a position called a closer that comes in about 6:30 in the evening and helps shut down the equipment. And then they bring everything back to the Board of Elections. And that one varies. It could end around 11, 12, sometimes 1 a.m. But we do have a variety of positions and everything is on the website that I gave you. But yeah, so, and that's just for the poll. So the canvas shifts will vary, and then any of the other ones, the nursing home or the drop box attendants have varying shifts as well.
Great. All right, so I have another question that is based on the first question about the young people. There's a question as to whether you are also interested in people in the older generation. I'm assuming the answer is yes, that there is a great opportunity to engage young people, but people who are 70 and over, or 60 and over, 50 and over, can you speak to that?
So if that's directed to me, absolutely. We
All of you.
like to have a very diverse group of individuals volunteering. I mean, this is a community effort. So when you walk in, you do want to see representation from your community, and that is all walks of life. So we need generations, families, bilingual individuals. If you speak, we have a mandate in Montgomery County that we have to have one Spanish speaking judge in each polling place. So if you have that specialty, please, we encourage you to apply.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Yeah, I would just say elections run on retirees. I gotta be honest. We have a huge contingent of older poll workers who we literally couldn't do this without. We love seeing them. I will say a lot of our positions in the polling place do require at least a baseline comfortableness with technology, but I find that the vast majority of people, regardless of age, do meet the requirement. It's basically like knowing how to use an iPad because that's what we use. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jelani, same for you.
It is, from at least from what I've seen, and I've been with the board since 2020. So this is my first year in the voter education and outreach division. Before I joined this division, I was in the election worker division. So I did a lot of work inside of vote center, scheduling for the vote center. And I can tell you that a lot of, probably majority of our volunteers are our elders for sure. Still moving and grooving, just still want to stay involved. So they definitely are still more involved than the younger folks, in my opinion.
Great. And I'm going to backtrack again a little bit. Aisha, you spoke to half day, full day. Alyssa and Jelani, can you comment also on, you may have had it in your presentation, I'm not sure, but because it was just a lot of information. So if you could just, that's a question that's come up, is half day, full day, is it all one or all the other?
So for for early voting in DC, we offer 6-hour shifts. It's a 6-hour shift for early voting. Election day is all day shift. You'll be working from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay. And Alyssa, if you can speak to Virginia generally, if you know, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, so Arlington specifically has full day shifts only for election day. Some counties do have half day shifts. I believe Fairfax County has half day shifts. I don't believe Alexandria does not. I think Loudoun County might as well have half day shifts. So it is something that's available, and you can go to another county. So if you really want to work a half day shift, you can absolutely offer your services to a county, even if you don't live there. I will say we do have half day shifts for working early voting. That is a separate process, but Virginia has 45 days of early voting. So that is a process that we are already staffing for, and mostly all the way through. So for future elections, if you prefer to work a part day, early voting is a good way to do that. So you should contact us in the spring.
Great. And I see someone has put into the chat that Falls Church does have part-day shifts, is one of the jurisdictions that has half-day shifts. So I want to ask if you can speak to whether you are seeing a crisis in your jurisdictions. That's, I feel like I've read nationally that there is kind of a crisis. People who have been longtime poll workers are deciding that that the pressure has risen and they're not doing it anymore. If you look at how your recruitment is going now, how is it comparing to previous years? Are you feeling sort of comfortable that you're on pace, or are you in a more of a crisis mode?
I'll speak first. So I don't believe we are in a crisis mode. The residents in DC are very involved, in my opinion. We are receiving a ton of applications for people that are now interested in participating in our program. Again, we try to call the reoccurring election workers just because we know that they're reliable and that they're already on board. But for the most part, I don't see a crisis or a downtick in receiving applications or people requesting or being interested in our program.
That's great to hear. Aisha? Or
Sure. So I would say that I'm always nervous about what we're going to have on election day. We get a lot of interest. We do a lot of outreach throughout the year. Our non-election years, during the election years, we have a high initiative with our high school. So we, have about 45 visits in the month of September to our local high schools to recruit poll workers. And so, part of them, coming on is sort of a no commitment at this time, but after you complete your training is where it becomes an opportunity for you to really commit and really show up for us. It is hard because people the urgency that we feel is not always the urgency on the volunteer, right? So we're constantly preparing for the elections. And so for us, the election is in November and it's so close to them, then election is November. They want to do training in November, so we do have that. And we do have, people, a lot of people are moving. A lot of people have said, I've done 20 years, I'm not going to participate. So we have that. In the primary, we were down workers. Fortunately, we didn't have, I won't say fortunately, but we didn't have as great a turnout as we anticipated. So it didn't provide such a great impact on the polling place. We were still able to operate, but we really need to be in a position where we have an abundance so that if people are dropping out at the last minute, we're able to fill those holes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of touching on what Aisha and Jelani were talking about, I am seeing some of our older poll workers who have that experience not wanting to work anymore. And the main issue there is that if you assign a person who's worked before, they will probably work on election day. If you assign a new person, they're far more likely to drop out. So that means that you're replacing workers as you go during election season, which is a huge strain on staff time. So the more brand new workers we have to recruit, the harder it is for us to keep up and keep that staffing level up. Even if we do have the level of interest we need to staff the polling place, there just comes a point where there's not enough hours in the day to contact enough new people and you start dropping poll workers. I'm seeing nods. So I think the issue is not with the level of interest, it's maintaining poll workers coming back. And we have been seeing, that election day gets more stressful for people as the years go on, both because they're getting older and also because election day is stressful now. So it just kind of all trickles down,
Yeah. Great, that's helpful. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here, participants, panelists. I think it's been a wonderful discussion with lots of information. I want to share with the participants that if this is something that you're interested in or you're interested in sharing with your family, your friends, your community. You can use the Power of the Polls link that I will be circulating, and that will take you directly to your local office once you fill out their information. You also can go directly to the website for your local office and register there and get all the information there. So you know, if it was a lot of information, sort of the easy that's hard to keep track of, the easiest way to do it is the Power of the Polls link will just take you where you need to go, but it's not your only option. So thank you for being here. Please reach out to me if you have questions, vfishman@jcouncil.org. And if you have any follow-up that you would like, I'm happy to chat with any of you. And again, thank you to Aisha, Alyssa, Jelani, and Sandra for joining us. And this concludes the webinar. Thanks.